And the craziest thing he said to me was when I said, okay, well, you need to help us scoop the ice cream because you didn't bring enough staff to scoop this ice cream. He's like, well, I guess I can try and figure it out. I'm like, sir, how hard can ice cream be for 1,200 people?
Also, we learn how to like scoop ice cream when you're like 5. Hey everyone, I'm Jen Santos, and this is Mayhem and Method, where event pros tell the real story of what happened and what it reveals about how events actually work. So I want to ask you, what are your favorite shoes for on-site?
So I recently bought On Clouds, and they have changed my life.
Really? What makes them so amazing? Because I'm kind of a Sketcher gal myself.
The support, they have like really, like, I think you need the ones that are really foamy with the like air bubbles. I'm sure this part of it is just marketing, but I won't lie, they are the most expensive shoes I have ever bought, and I will buy them over and over and over again now that I've done events in them. Like, I find that usually when I'm on site, like by like lunchtime, I'm like, my feet are killing me. And
Yeah.
like my feet are sore after 12 hours or 15 hours on concrete, but it's nothing like it has been. Like they're just so good.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because you're like a logistics person, right? I'm a vet tech, so I stay seated in a seat most of the
Yes.
day, but you're like up and about all day long. Interesting.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So Shanondoah, I'm going to go and get into this now. So we have with us today Shanondoah Nicholson. She is an award-winning event planner who makes magic happen with her agency Beyond the BO. So thank you so much for being here today, and I am super excited to have you on the show.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So I just want to dive right into it. So as you know, the way the show works is that we kind of talk about an event that happened, something that went sideways at some point, usually on site. And then we'll take that little story and we'll kind of like unpack it to figure out how the heck did we get here? So Shanondoah, tell me, what was a moment of the millions that you've had that you want to share with us today?
I think my favorite is the ice cream gone wrong story, and I've actually like used it in interviews. No one thinks ice cream's going to be that stressful, but so this was years ago, like a lot of years ago. I worked on a team at a large insurance company, and we were responsible for a lot of employee programming. So like employee appreciation days. We did this series called Days of Summer where we'd have like different treat days, and like it was like thousands of people that we had to do this for. And one of the days we had ice cream, and every year they had ice cream. And one year they went and got like fancy ice cream, and people were not happy. They wanted their like basic. They did not want fancy flavors. They did not want artisan ice cream. They wanted their like chocolate, maybe something with a little mint chocolate chip or something. Like, they do not mess with people's ice cream. So we have this event. We bring in a vendor that you would think has done it before. I won't name them, but they're a very well-known ice cream brand. And I don't know exactly how it happened, but they did not set it up that the freezers were on. So we have this, the vendor comes in, and they were plugged in. So I assumed they were like these big rolling tubs of freezers, and I assumed they had been plugged in because I am not an ice cream expert besides eating it. And he, for one, didn't seem to realize how many people we were serving, even though we told him, and he brought that many cups and spoons. And he's like, well, we don't have enough people to do that. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's like, well, and this hasn't been frozen overnight. I'm like, but it's your ice cream. And I think the funniest thing he said to me, because, most of the ice cream was fine because it was in like the cooler, wasn't frozen, but it was fine for the most part. There was some that was unusable, but for the most part, it was fine. Yeah,
right? Like,
and
this
even
is a
if
basic
you did it,
childhood
like maybe
skill.
you grew up in a house that didn't eat a lot of ice cream, like you understand how spoons work, right?
Yeah.
Like, when you're having a conversation with someone and you're like, are we on the same planet? Are we?
Yeah. Oh, okay. So there's a lot going on in this, and let's just take a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
So So this was backing up to the beginning. This was the guy that brought the artisan ice cream.
No, this
right?
was the regular. This was we scrapped the artisan ice cream because it was too fancy. Nobody wanted balsamic on their ice cream, and we said, nope. This year we're going with a fan favorite. So again, a brand that literally everyone has had their ice cream, like hard ice cream, not like soft serve, like hard ice cream. Everybody has had it, and it was like the local franchise owner. We said we're having 1,200 people. We have 700 people on one floor and 500 people, hopefully my math's right, on another floor. And so they'll be divided, and like that's just how the setup is.
Right.
And then his panic ensued. Like
his
was
panic
panicking.
ensued. Okay, so I want to come back to the artisan thing too, because I'm super interested in that. But let's stay on this part of it for now. So did he get called at the last minute to do this? No. So he knew this was not a surprise to him. No. And then showed up. Did he supply the freezers as well?
Yeah, so like, like a chest, the chest freezers that they roll in. You see them with like the ice cream treat. So that was what it was. They rolled them in. They were plugged in. So I don't know what they did. Like, I don't know if they were maybe not freezers and maybe they were just coolers, but they were plugged in. And so I didn't, and they had been there since like the night before, or like hours before, like hours and hours, because we were serving it like, in the afternoon. Right. And I went upstairs to, get the rest of the stuff set, the signage and all that stuff set up. And it was all plugged in. And I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure they had used this vendor before. Like, I think like years before they had used this person to serve ice cream. Yeah.
Okay. So by the time you got there to the afternoon, then it wasn't completely frozen, right? It was starting to soften up. I live in Salvador, Brazil.
Soften. Some more than others. Some were like fine. Some not so fine. And that also got worse as the day went on, right? Because we're serving, it takes a few hours to serve 1,200 people.
1,200 people, yeah. Okay, so, you obviously don't know what is going on in the head of the owner, right? Yeah. Nobody can know, and I don't think we really want to try to go there anyhow.
No.
So, who contracted with this person then?
Yeah, so I think, again, this was years ago.
Yep, no, totally.
And it was, like I said, we were on 2 floors of the building. And I think that the person who was on the other floor had contracted it because, like I said, they had used them before. And I think that's also where some of the, like, confusion came in, is that she had contracted them once before for, like, a 500-person event. And she didn't tell him 1,200 people because he brought cups for 1,200 people and spoons for 1,200 people. But I think he also didn't realize that we were going to be on 2 floors and that like his staff was going to have to be divided. The ice cream was going to have to be divided. I mean, it still should have been frozen, but I think he wasn't like logistically thinking about what that meant and like how that practice would go. So I think that's where the like panic over the staffing came in, was that he thought we were all just going to be in the same place serving however much ice cream we were serving.
Right. So logistics is not my side of the house, right? So typically, like, what would happen? Like, what sort of prep would you do when you have a vendor like this coming in? Like, I feel like there was definitely a gap in there where that wasn't communicated. Hey, we're going to have 2 floors. We're going to need staffing from 1 to 4, whatever the case might be. Like, how does that process go when things go well?
Yeah, I think that when it goes well, it's, this is the number we're serving. These are the hours that we have to serve them. And like, I did my CMP years ago. There's like a calculation for bartenders, right? Of like, if you have more than 75 people, you need to have 2 bartenders for the first and like, there's like a whole formula. And really, it's kind of the same for any kind of catering. And realistically, like as the planner, I'm relying on the vendor to tell me, well, it takes us this long. It takes us 30 seconds to scoop. You want to do it in 4 hours, so we're going to need to have, X number of people, right?
Right.
And I think, like, it's finding, like, that partner. And I think that was, again, I don't know what was going on in the owner's mind. I don't know what he didn't understand. And maybe like he had gotten the information from someone else, because sometimes that happens too, right? You might contract with like head office, and then they send somebody on site who's like, well, this isn't what I thought we were doing. And like even recently I had, like, not to get too off topic, but I hired a band for an event, and I told my contact, who's the salesperson, like, I want this number of sets. I don't want any vocals. I want, like, there's going to be a speech at this time, da 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 da. And then when they were setting up, I'm like, why are you guys setting up a microphone? They're like, well, for the singer. I'm like, no. Like, there's not going to be a singer. So I think, like, sometimes it's just that, like, rechecking in when they get on site, right? Which is what we did with the ice cream guy too, right? Of like,
Right.
Okay, all this information has gone down the line, like from our team to your team, and then that gets disseminated. Are we still on the same page, right? Like, are we still clear about what the expectations are? Has something changed? Of like, oh, I mean, this was summer, but like, has there been a crazy snowstorm and now half the office isn't here, and so we're going to need to adjust? Or, oh, we like all of a sudden everybody found out there was ice cream and they're so excited, and so like we had more people in the office than we expected, right? So I think, you tell your vendor, this is what we're looking to do. You trust that they're able to do it, and like sometimes it's that you've worked with them in the past, sometimes you're just going on reputation, sometimes you're just going on a wing and a prayer. And then it's kind of keeping that communication going the whole time of like, okay, you're checking in on site. Well, what do you mean, like, this isn't the way that I thought it was going to be? It's like, okay, well, I understand that that's not what you thought, but this is the reality. So now we have to execute on that reality.
Yeah. So is there usually like a final check-in, like in the days leading up, like prior to them showing up, to say, hey, just to double confirm? Or is that something you let the client do? Like, how does that work?
It really depends on what it is. Like, what it is, who the vendor is, right? Like, usually you're going on like either your BEO or like whatever your contract is as the guide. But like I said, like, you might show up and say, oh, on paper, this is how we thought this was going to operate, or this is how we thought it was going to look. And now something has changed, right? Like, this was an in-office event, but if you're at a venue and all of a sudden, like, they've had escalators go down, and so now you need to figure out where that is. So normally you might not have a call. You're likely relying on, and you might, but you're going on your BEO, you're going on your contract, you're going on, whatever your communication was. And I always like will have a call and then, put it in an email and have a way to refer back to it. But I think it's just that the more people that you have involved and the more complex things are, it's easy for things to get missed or confused, and again, like, some people are just like living in their own world. like sometimes you're just like, what? That's not what we talked about at all, right? And like, the example with the musician, likely the person that contracted it like copied and pasted something or sent the email, or the musician was like, oh, every time we do this, we are singers, and I said, oh, we don't need you to sing, and he's like, oh, okay, and like that was fine, right? So I think sometimes there's just like, people are doing so many things all the time that it's easy and some of it is so similar that it's easy for it to be like, oh, well, wait, was that the one that didn't want the singer, or was this the one that needed the singer? And like, kind of figuring out those things.
Yeah, no, totally. Like when I'm doing a road show, I'm like, right, which city was that had this thing? Right, you just forget. You just lose track when you're going from event to event to event like that. So real quick, for me, and maybe others are listening, what does BEO stand for? I was like, I don't know.
Banquet event order. So if you're like, you wouldn't really have it with like a regular vendor, but if you're contracting like a hotel or a convention center, it is basically what everybody is working off of. So it is usually based on all of your communications, your emails. The venue usually puts it together of, this is what time this is what time the doors are going to be open. This is what time security is going to be on site. This is what time breakfast is going to be set up. These are all the special meals. this is the time of the serve. Like, it is like literally, and it's not the run of show. So it's not what you're operating your event on. Like, it's not like your team's thing. It's really your contract with the venue to say,
right,
yes, we will pay for 500 breakfasts, and this is what time we're expecting them. And that's like kind of how your venue operates on things, and they distribute it to to their team, so that, you know, banquets knows what's going on. The hotel might also get a copy of it, like the front desk, so that they know, like, oh, okay, we have 300 people checking in, and they're probably all coming in at these couple hours. So yeah, it's really like your guide for the event with your venue.
Got it. So like, I sort of think of it as a combination of like, it's like half a statement of work, and then it's like half almost like the run of show for the venue.
Yeah, kind of. And usually what you'll do, if it's a bigger program, like if it's a small, like, you know, 30-person meeting, you're probably not doing this. But if you're having like a large event, you're doing a pre-con meeting with your with your venue, and that's what you're literally like, it's printed in front of you, and you're going through it step by step, and that's where you can call out and say, oh, actually, that VIP is now arriving on this, like they've had to move their flight, or actually, and you know, we found out that we need 2 extra kosher meals, and like, that's where you're kind of like, are we all on the same page, right?
Right.
And I think that, you know, you asked earlier, how does that sync up for you and your vendors? It's really going to depend on the size of the vendor. And like, when it's a big program, you're having that check-in. And like, you sign the banquet event order, and like, that's what they go on. It changes after that. Like, we're now running late, or actually tomorrow they want to have lunch a half hour early. Like, it is like the final, but it's not really the final. Like, it is as close as you're going to get before doors open of, okay, are we all on the same page? AV is here, security is here, banquets is here, like, the hotel, sometimes parking comes in. They're like, hey, we need to, like, valet needs to know, are 300 people coming all at once? Or are they coming throughout the day? Or are most of them coming on transit? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got a running joke in event tech land that scope doesn't lock till the event is over.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's just the reality of things. Yeah. So to go back to the ice cream. So how did your client react then when she found out that they weren't staffed appropriately and her ice cream was melting?
Well, so like, at the time I was working in-house, I was the client.
Oh.
And that came to like having a conversation with the events team of, okay, who's ready to scoop ice cream? And, you know, we were a team of 3. And there was other people we worked with, like usually like admins in the company that would like manage things. And one person went downstairs and 2 of us stayed up at the bigger one and scooped ice cream. Like, I scooped ice cream for 4 hours. I was covered in ice cream, like head to toe. I'm like, I don't even know how this happened. Like, I don't even know how I am this covered in ice cream. Wow. And it was really just a conversation of like, okay, fine. Like, this guy is very upset. He was also kind of mean to his staff. And I'm like, you know, we just don't need this energy here. Like, we're going to figure it out. It's not that big a deal. Like, it's okay. Right. Like, we're going to get through, like, the lives are not on the line. Like, we are serving ice cream. Let's all, like, kind of take a breath and reframe. And it was just executing and figuring out and setting expectations. So, like, we ran out of some flavors early because they melted and they didn't move. We couldn't talk about them. And so, especially for the people near the end of the day of, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't give you an extra scoop, and like, you know, just trying to make it fun of like, oh, that flavor was so popular. Like, obviously not telling people that all the ice cream had melted. Not all of it, like a lot of it. After I finished, it was like, I think it was, I don't know, 1 to 4, 1 to like, whatever the hours were. I went back to my desk, and my coworker, who was across the aisle from me, who was not an event planner. She was on my team. She was on the marketing team, but not an event planner. She's like, have you sat down? Are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm okay. I had to go, let's have someone sneak me into the office gym so that I could rinse off my so much ice cream.
Oh. So Did the guy ever explain like why his freezers didn't actually cool anything? No, nothing. Okay.
You know what? Honestly, he was so in a panic that it was like, okay, you're not helping. Like, and I don't like. You're no longer helping the situation, so I don't need you here. Yeah. I don't need you to. You're just making things worse. And like, obviously, I said it in a very polite way of like, no problem. Like, we have it handled. Like, our team can step in and we'll take care of it. Your team seems to be doing a great job. Like, we'll work with them to figure out the best process, right? Like, sometimes, like, people are just, like, they're pulling the energy away of, like, okay, I don't know what happened. And I like, again, it's been a long time, and I was not the person who contracted. So I don't know if they ever, like, really followed up. And then COVID hit and... like that, that event never happened again, or at least never happened with me there. So I don't know, like, if they went back and, use that vendor again. But I think, like, at that point, it's just like, okay, you're clearly not equipped to handle this. And I think, like, event planners deal with that a lot. Someone who's, like, in such a panic and is so overwhelmed, it's like, I need to just kind of remove you from the situation because you're just making it worse. You're stressing out your staff because you're not prepared, and like, we're going to figure it out. And so like, just kind of go away. Please.
No, that's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, you know what? Like, some people just don't have, this is going to be weird to say, but they don't have like a event planner energy, right? They don't know how to react when things go wrong.
Yeah.
And in that case, you're right. It's just better to remove them from the situation and just handle it yourself. It's like, yeah, this is a really lousy situation to be in. And this is how we're going to make it the best that we possibly can, so it looks as good as possible to our attendees. And I have to assume that that company was never contracted with again.
Yeah, probably not. But then also, like, maybe they were, because by the time COVID lifted, probably most of the team I wasn't there anymore. And I'm sure someone was like, oh, we used them 5 years ago. Because I've also had that happen of, I had an event where we hired a photographer because we had used them, like, I don't know, like 6 years ago or something. Like, they were like there was an invoice and we were like, oh great, like we used them 6 years ago, and we got on site and they were terrible. Like, they were cranky, their photos weren't very good, and I was like, oh, see, this is what happens when you don't actually have the institutional knowledge. You just have like the documents that say, oh, we use this photographer, and then you're like, like, now people will ask me like, oh, do you have a photographer in this city? I'm like, oh, no, what do you? Right? Like, so I think it sometimes that can happen too, of like, if there's like enough change, people are just thinking, oh, well, last year we did it. Most people are not going to remember the drama of dealing with the ice cream for the hour before we started serving it. And I think also, and you and I have talked about this before, of like the short memories of people, right? Of either they weren't there, or they were there, but they weren't really involved. And so they don't know how stressful it was. And then I think like there's some of it that, like, even me telling this story, it's one of my favorites just because it's so silly. But like, even I've blocked out like some of the things, or like I've done so many events since then. Like, you do, like, and you said like, oh, what city was that in? Or like, sometimes you get on site and you're like, oh, right, I remember why I hated this venue, or like, but like I forgot until now because there's been 100 since then. So
event amnesia is real. We talked about this on your podcast not that long ago, and. Yeah, and I think you brought up an interesting point on institutional knowledge as it comes to vendors, right? It's like, how cool would that be if different like agencies and organizations that host events kind of have like their own, I think, I saw somebody talk about like having their own like little like tea party, like spilling the tea, right? And it's where like you keep notes on like different vendors, like literally like honest notes
Yeah.
Like this worked well, this didn't work well. If it was a specific person, because people leave, say, hey, the agency is good, this person, right? And it's obviously highly confidential, but that's an interesting thing for like companies to like implement.
Yeah.
So yep, that ice cream vendor had problems X, Y, and Z. Maybe we shouldn't do that again.
Right. And sometimes it's the person that, like, I know the last company I worked in-house for, they had a vendor that they liked the person, and that person left to another venue, like another vendor, and they switched because they're like, no, like, we worked with you because you were the one who got things done, made things happen. So just as much as sometimes you can be like, oh, I don't want to work with that person, there are also times that planners, and I mean, I'm sure everyone will switch vendors because it's the person. And I've said that before to some people, like, it's different when it's a venue, because it's like, okay, well, the venue is the venue. But if it's a fabricator, swag provider, sort of the musician changes like the management company, well, I don't care about the management company. Like, I liked that musician, right? So there's also that. And I think like the industry is getting better at being more open, and obviously we don't want to like be slamming people on publicly on LinkedIn, or even in there's these Slack channels that are private but like not private, like I think you still have to have discretion and be respectful, but I think that you can say like, hey, this was my experience, and maybe it was an off day, and maybe it was not, but like here's my feedback, right? And I think since like lockdowns and that reset of a lot of people throughout the industry, like, I know that there are some people who have worked in the same places since, prior to 2020, but that's not common. And it's also not common for people to stay at jobs more than 2-3 years, right? Yeah. So the institutional knowledge is really interesting. And I think it's also like you said, documenting that stuff quickly, and not while you're not after the, like, even on site of like, oh, this didn't go well, like, just taking a note on your phone so that you remember, because you won't remember, or the annoyance will pass when you're not directly dealing with it. And so
I do this every event now. It took me a while to figure it out, to be perfectly honest, but 15 years in or whatever it is, like, I start about a day and a half prior to the end of the event. I actually open up my debrief document and I just start making notes. And then once I kind of have my pass done, and I break it out by section, for me, it's by work stream, right? And then I'll go and I'll send it to like my core team members. And I'm like, okay, like, these are my notes. Let's be perfectly honest here, people. There's no naming and shaming. Like, I don't believe in that, because that doesn't help anybody.
Yeah.
But it's like, okay, like, let's list what went right, what went wrong. Where do we need to connect earlier on some things to make sure this doesn't happen again? And I feel like, there is a total event amnesia. Like, a week out, I have no idea what's happened.
Yeah, especially in peak season, and like when it's busy and the next crisis happens. And, my husband always said he had a boss who used to say, like, blame the process, not the person. And I think that's like a really good way of looking at it. Like, obviously there might be some specific people that you're like, I don't need to hire this person again because the experience was not good. But if it's like your internal team, it's likely a process issue, like you said, of like, we needed to communicate earlier or more or differently, versus, well, they just weren't listening. It's like, well, were they not listening because you weren't giving them information in a way that was conducive to their workflow, conducive to what they needed? So I always like that line of like, blame the process, not the person, and find the way to fix the process, not the person.
I love that. That is so much, as like my philosophy for like events and event systems, because they are systems and I'm a systems person, right? And getting them to work really well.
Yeah.
And I think this is where I'd like to wrap up the conversation. I'm going to let the artisan ice cream go for another day. And so I want to thank you so much for being here today. This was a really great conversation. I'd love to have you let my listeners know where they can find out more about you and where they can connect with you.
For sure. So I spend a lot of time, probably too much time, on LinkedIn. I think I'm the only Shanondoah Nicholson on LinkedIn, so I'm pretty easy to find and always happy to connect. And you can also follow me on Beyond the BEO on Instagram, where I post event tips and sometimes just some painfully relatable event memes. So
yes, you do. That's actually where I found you, was on Instagram. And then I stalked you over on LinkedIn, and here we are, however many years later.
Amazing.
So thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for listening in to another roller coaster someone else rode so you don't have to. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to rate, review, subscribe, and share so other event pros can find the show. Until next time, tame the mayhem.
Audiotocracy.